liked it. I didn't know what I was
He had to say it 4 times. I thought he was going to make it say it.
Yeah.
4 different spots. He was just picking this one.
Picking the best one. But I wish you would have told us who we were thanking, because I would have maybe meant it.
Yeah.
You could just tell us. Like, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What?
I gotta get in character.
Yeah. Just
Can you hear me?
tried to make it without
I think it's
stuttering, and I just said that's it. Yeah, it was cute. It was a good idea. He's just saying whatever. I feel like peace. I feel like I'm on the bad side of the classroom. I feel like I'm in the principal's office because I'm too close to the air. Like, you know,
Oh yeah.
you look great.
Yeah,
You look fine.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling better. I'm just still it's a weird vacation.
You understand? Sundays or 14th? Oh my gosh.
Yes, sir. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the January 12th meeting of Mount Pleasant Town Council. It's good, I'm sorry, February. To see everybody here. Hold on just a second, please. And looking forward to Valentine's Day. Some of us have on our red in anticipation of that. Our agenda has been published and is before you. It is the appointed time and appointed place to meet. Item number 1 is the prayer led by Rabbi Yossi Revson. After which we will do the Pledge of Allegiance led by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Almighty God, source of all blessing, source of all healing, source of all comfort, we beseech you in your abundant mercy to bestow your blessings upon all the residents of this great town. Your blessings of health, happiness, prosperity, and of course, unity. Because we know that when we turn to you as a father, you turn to us as a brother and a sister. We pray for our mayor, our town council men and women, our heads of department, our police chief as he embarks on a new chapter, our civil servants, men and women of law enforcement, and first responders. Because we know that when someone puts their own life and someone dedicates their life to help another person, this very act opens the doors to your blessings, and it is for those blessings that we pray today. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Item number 4, public hearings, awards, and presentations. First is recognition of the Mount Pleasant cross-country team and the USATF Junior Olympic Cross-Country Nationals at the Nationals.
Sir. Mr. Gerget, could you bring him in? Mr. Santos?
It was.
I saw him out in the hall. Mm-hmm. You seen him out on the track?
Yeah, look at all these little youngins.
Oh, okay.
You sound like my mother-in-law.
Wow,
She calls him young ones.
big crowd.
My favorite part of the whole council meeting.
This is not the team. This is who qualified to go to nationals.
Okay.
This is crazy.
This isn't the team. This is just who qualified to go to nationals.
Oh my goodness.
Goodness.
No, this is crazy.
Yeah. Wow. track
My
club.
goodness.
My
Give 'em a
daughter
minute to
was
let the
doing theirs
parents
too.
come in.
For exercise. Awesome. They're so cute. I think I'm gonna adopt them. Miss them. The little ones.
Wow.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Last year, the Mount Pleasant Track Club used masks preparing for the cold conditions at the USATF Junior Olympic Nationals. Mount Pleasant Track Club set a high bar at the 2019 Nationals with 3 age groups on the podium, 2 of which were national champions. Who knew masks would play such a big role in our meets this year? But after 5 successful practice meets and a state championship meet in Newberry, the Mount Pleasant Track Club was prepared for the 2020 Cross Country Junior Olympic Nationals to be held in December in Paris, Kentucky. The Mount Pleasant Track Club had 58 All-Americans, top 25 in the nation, including individual and team members. And the team performances were the club's best ever, with all 6 teams finishing in the top 3 in their age groups. The 13-14 boys closed the season strong, finishing 3rd in the country. The 11 and 12 boys tied for a 3rd, with the tiebreaker going to the 6th runner, placing the boys on the podium by 1 point. After placing 4th in the country 4 times over the years, the 9 and 10 girls finally made the podium as 3rd in the nation. The 8 and under girls made the podium for the 2nd year in a row, finishing 3rd in the country. And the 8 and under boys and the 9 and 10 boys teams were both recognized as national champions 2 years in a row. With all the trials and tribulations over the 2020 season, it ended up being our best season ever, stated Coach Tammy Dennis. What a great way to end the season. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'm going to ask Coach Dennis to come up and recognize her team. So if you would, just hold the pause until she can finish recognizing her team.
Okay.
Coach?
Thank you. We're going to start with the 8 and unders. When I call your name, I want you to just go forward a little bit so you can kind of separate yourself from the group. But our 8 and under girls were 3rd in the nation, but we had 3 individuals that were All-American. Ronelle St. Germain was 7th overall. Olivia Lee was 14th overall. And Evelyn Mercer was 25th overall. She had a strong finish. Top 25 are All-American. She had to pass about 10 people on the hill to make that 25th place. And then along with Darby Schwartz and Gabby Ledoux, is Gabby? The team was 3rd place overall. So 8 and under girls had a very strong showing. 8 and under boys. Okay, y'all can back up. 8 and under boys. Last year we were national champions, and the bar was set very high. But we had a strong group, led by Vinny Cote. Vinny's not here tonight. He was 18th overall. And Eli Hines was 24th overall. And then along with him on the team, the national champion team, was Evan Wichard, Chase Ostrander, Hess Loftus, Maxwell Jordan, Adrian Fan, and Felix Hodenas. And national champions for the 2nd year in a row, 8 and under boys. 9 and 10 girls. Gary did a great job of explaining, but for 4 years in a row, we're not over the last 18 years, we've been fourth, which is not on the podium, 4 times. So this year was the time to break that jinx that had been put upon us. And they were led by, 19 girls were led by Lucy Baxter, who had a fabulous day. She was 17th overall. And along with her, Savannah Hislop, Sienna DiAgostino, Lila Mae, Baker West, Ada Click, Kalea Edwards, and Catherine Wichard. They were third to be on the podium for the first time for Mount Pleasant Track Club. That was a very big accomplishment. Our 9 and 10 boys really set the standard all year long. And it's not surprising because if you look at the 8 and unders that moved up last year that were All-Americans, and then the 9-10s that were All-Americans last year, they pretty much were a team of All-Americans. So expectations were very high this year. We were not disappointed. We had 3 in the top 25. Ty Allensbach was 15th. First year running for us. Where's Ty? I know you're here. Ty, stand up. Anthony Cote is not here. He was 18th. And Miles Tonellis was 17th. And they were the top 3. They were the top 3 in the top 25. But along with them, Dylan Johnson, Drew Butler, Drew Loftus, Andrew Amani, and Jonah Fashi to be national champions. Super, guys, super. Were led by, we did not have a team in this age group. We only had 2 that performed, that ran. But Nora Braham, who came off a great 7th grade year at Bishop England, came in 8th overall to be All-American, which is fabulous. 11-12 boys. We have never had an 11-12 boys team on the podium. But this year they were led by Gabe Hislop. Where's Gabe? Gabe just with his All-American status, he was 20th overall, and being on a team, he is now our all-time leader in All-American positions as he's a 10-time All-American now, and he's 11 years old. To let you know, too, when we went to Kentucky, they did it in waves. So you had a first wave and you had a second wave. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. But you had to wait after your wave to see how your kids did. And the big board with the they kept moving and stuff. And we were on the board as 3rd place. Well, we were tied. And it went to the 6th runner. And then we stayed at 3rd, and that poor Walton team out of Georgia came in 4th. But they I didn't want to leave that podium. I didn't want to leave until the start of the next race to see if it changed. But along with Gabe, we had Zachary Teachman, Benjamin Huntington, Barclay Irvine, Owen Johnson, Burkett Yon, Del Cambray St. Germain, and Jack Baxter. For our 11-12 boys. 3rd place finish. And then the next day, they broke it into 2 age groups, and 2 different days performing. So the next day, we had our 13-14 girls perform, and then our 13-14 boys compete. And we had been 5 for 5 with 1 team left. And we pretty much had a little talk with the 13-14 boys. If you want to be 6 for 6, you're going to have to run. So I think there were 18 teams competing, and came in 3rd, which was just a huge, huge accomplishment. And it took every single runner. We had 1 runner in the top 25. That was John Teachman at 18th. But along with John was Jack Butler, Charlie Tessier, Mark Graham, Ethan Garelick, Quinn Swatton, Peyton Johnson, and Owen Schaefer for a 3rd place finish, which was fabulous. I don't know what next year's gonna bring, but I can't tell you how proud I was of this team for 2020 and the way they performed in a year that was trying anyway. So very, very proud of this team. So thank you for recognizing us.
Ladies and gentlemen, how about Coach Tammy Dennis? Fantastic job. Let's give it up for Coach Dennis. Thank you. Thank you, Coach. We're very proud of the track team. We always are. You know, every year you come back and you're a winner. And these guys and ladies always do a fantastic job. And we see it because when it goes up into the high schools, those high schools are very good as well. But it's because they start at the bottom down here with you. So thank you so much for what you do for our children. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Guys, but if we could do 2 lines back here so I can squeeze all of you in.
We're going to stand for the picture, all right?
I'm gonna take a picture again. Eric, I don't know if we can get them all in. Keep going, Gary.
I'll pull a Corley.
Move down.
I am now.
That's good. Thank you, guys.
Congratulations.
We'll let the room clear
Keep it together.
for a minute.
That was close.
And you did good in the town, state of the town stuff. When does it come on TV? It should show it today. That's what I thought. I didn't see it. I didn't know.
We'll let the crowd get out the door so we can hear ourselves. It's not on the agenda.
That's a good word. Okay.
While we were waiting, we didn't put it on the agenda tonight, but the State of the Town address is a video, and it's council and me, and that has been released. It's on our Facebook page. I think it's on the website, anywhere else, but we're not going to show that tonight. We had enough stuff to do, and it's, what is it, 16, 17 minutes long, something like that? Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay. Great job by our staff. I'm very impressed. Eric in the back with your technical skills. Fantastic. All right, the next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the January 12th special and regular town council meetings and the December 2020 financial statement.
Move for approval on both minutes.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved.
Excuse me, who was the second on that? Thank you.
Item number 6 is public comment. When your name is called, please come to the lectern. 2 minutes, name and address, please, and the timer will let you know when your time is up. Thank you.
Mark Leppert, Sr.
Hello, my name is Mark Leppert. I live at 1526 Periwinkle Drive in Mount Pleasant. I'm here tonight asking for help and direction from the council to get restrooms put at Rimley's Point. I've lived in Mount Pleasant, East Cooper area my whole life and have seen a lot of change. And my oldest son just had a daughter, and the idea of her having to run for the trees like a lot of people have to, it's just there's no facilities there, there's none even close. And it's just it's just disheartening. I've spoke with Mr. Bennett at Charleston Parks and Rec and Mr. Sass and Benji over at the Legislative Committee and all, and I'm subsequently going to talk with all of them. I know this is not owned by the town of Mount Pleasant, and I understand that it's always about money and all. I just was hoping that we could all try and figure out a way to get with them and figure something out. It's just not right to have, I don't know how many cars, nobody could tell me how many people use the launch there, but there's 3 lanes, and we leave at 3 in the morning to go offshore fishing, and there's boats going then, and when we come back at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, it's a madhouse trying to get out, and it's very tough, and I don't know. I don't know what to do, so here I am. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carla Gregg.
Good evening. My name is Carla Gregg, and I'm the president of the 4 Mile Community Association. And I'm here tonight asking that we try to preserve the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay Commission or district by not approving the annexation or the rezoning of the 1246 Mile Road, the tract that wants to get rezoned for bigger development. I just think we need to preserve that. Mount Pleasant has grown and bustled so wide that it's like we're getting lost in all the development. So I'm just asking that we not let this ordinance go through and just help to preserve the Sweetgrass Overlay District. And that's all I really have to say.
Thank you.
Claudia Mazik.
Claudia Mazik, 1285 6 Mile Road. I'm a member of the CAGE organization, Community Action Group for Encouragement. And I have an objection to the R2 zoning at 1246 Mile Road. I was born and raised here in Mount Pleasant, and the beauty of it is the space, the low country atmosphere that makes people want to spend time outdoors. But we are losing that with the crowded subdivisions with only a driveway between homes and the crowded roads that look like rush hour all day. I'm not against progress, but must we lose the flavor of our community even more? Will the next thing be a 4-lane highway going through 6 Mile? Please keep the zoning at R3. Thank you.
Nathaniel Hutchinson.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Nathaniel Hutchinson. I reside at 1051 Theodore Road in Arlington, and I'm requesting my items are number 4 and number 5 on the agenda sheet here. I own the adjacent property, which is 1065 Theodore Road, which is right behind the Beehive, the new Beehive development tract that got started about 5 years ago. Well, to their discovery, there was a strip of land that was unclaimed by anyone, so they were generous enough to deed it to me and the people who own property on that line. So at this point, 80 acre, which I reside at, is in Arlington, and the adjacent property which I own, which is 1065 Theodore Road, is in the town of Mount Pleasant. So that portion of property that was deeded to my additional tract is about 0.20. And so I have, like to not to their discovery, but to my knowledge, that unclaimed property has always been there. And so I have a shed and I have a dog fence. So each morning I wake up, I go to feed my dog in Mount Pleasant, and I live in Arlington. And I have 3 cats that live in the shed also. So when I wake up, I go feed them in Mount Pleasant. I live in Arlington. So I would respectfully ask that y'all would grant annexation into my 1051 address into the town of Mount Pleasant. Thank y'all for your time.
Pearl Askew.
Good evening. Pearl Askew, 977 Gadsdenville Road, Allendale. I'm from the 10 Mile community, but I'm here today in support of the 7 Mile community CAGE group in regards to the rezoning of the property. We all know that settlement communities in the Low Country East Cooper area, we're all different, but each community have their own vision of what the communities want to look like. This is, this particular project has been zoned under the comprehensive plan, and in my opinion, and along with the people in that 6 Mile, 7 Mile community, please allow them to have that zoning as it currently is. It's best not only for the community, but the East Cooper area at large. Thank you, and we hope that you consider the zoning issues. Thank you.
Michael Novielli.
Good evening, Mike Novielli, 221 Bayfront Drive, Mount Pleasant. I'd like to briefly touch upon the information which is being reported to the public regarding COVID-19. During last month's town council meeting, we heard a medical community update provided by Ms. Taylor and Dr. Smith of MUSC. We were told that deaths attributable to COVID-19 nationwide totaled approximately 370,000. What exactly does that mean? For example, in Grant County, Colorado, just in December, as reported by CBS 4 Denver and other news outlets, the local coroner was outraged that 2 deaths resulting from gunshot wounds were counted as COVID-19 deaths, only because the deceased tested positive post-mortem. When she pressed her superior, she was surprised to find that the CDC actually requires reporting on deaths due to COVID-19 and among COVID-19 cases, meaning that people who died with COVID-19, but where COVID-19 may not have been the cause of death listed on the death certificate. How is this relevant, and when did this become the reporting standard for pandemics? Later, we heard cases were spiking in the Charleston area due to which Councilwoman Landing stated that, according to DHEC, cases in the town of Mount Pleasant were actually declining. If so, why didn't the representatives from MUSC mention that? Further, Ms. Landing stated a repeatedly common theme that data on the DHEC website is becoming increasingly more difficult for the public to access. Why is that? Shouldn't the public be allowed to conduct their own research and make informed decisions for themselves and their families? I think going forward, it would be much more informative and helpful if the information we receive from our officials and the medical community were more defined and more complete. Thank you.
Jennifer Hightower.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Hightower with Dominion Energy, South Carolina at 1277 Chuck Dolly Boulevard. We have a rezoning request in front of you guys tonight, and just wanted to let you know that we are here. We have our architect and several folks from our operations team to answer any questions you may have, but we're not proposing any changes to the use of the property. We just want to make some site improvements and changes to our office building. So happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much.
Richard Habersham.
Good evening. I'm Richard Habersham at 2938 Bennett Charles Road, and I'm here to speak on 1240 6 Mile Road. I got 2 issues with this proposal. I'm not trying to stop the proposal or tell me they can't build nothing, but Mount Pleasant already have a problem with build outs. You always stopped issuing permits a couple of years ago, so y'all saying that Mount Pleasant was getting too crowded. With this changing the zoning on this property, when you're going to add more houses that can't be added, you increase it, you're creating a problem. The second part of this is the traffic. Everybody in Mount Pleasant know we already got a traffic problem. So why not keep the density down so that you wouldn't have that build-up problem, or you would have you'll help with the traffic problem. You're not going to solve it, but you'll help with all this. That's all I got to say. And thank you.
Marcus McDonald.
Hello, my name is Marcus McDonald, and I'm calling in representation of CHSB alum, but I'm here today in support of the 6 Mile community and the Sweetgrass District. I believe that Black Lives Matter, Black culture matters, and these Black houses matter, and their environment matters too. And Black history matters too, and that's important in this month and every month. But I'm gonna give y'all a history lesson. Did y'all know that between 1910 and 1997, Black Americans lost 90% of their farmland? Did y'all know that the KKK's main reason for lynching black folks wasn't because they touched white women or whatever the main discourse is? It was because of land. They wanted their land. Y'all are sitting here, and this is, we've built on so much and we progressed so much as a culture, but we have to look at it. It wasn't only radicals like the KKK, it was also the government and city councils like we're sitting here today that made issues like annexation and have like aided and abetted a lot of this land loss. So we can't let history repeat itself, and we have to learn from our mistakes, and we have to listen to the 6 Mile community and listen to people that live in these districts. And that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Chris Donato.
Good evening, Chris Donato, 1250 Fairmont Avenue. I'm the engineering representative for the Watts family, and we're here tonight for annexation and zoning. I just want to make a couple of quick comments. This is an existing development, and in the 20 years that I have been in this business, I have never been involved in an existing development that is now coming to the town and saying, hey, we have 31 homes. We want to join the town. We want to pay our taxes for the uses that we've been having over the years that we haven't been paid for, we've been paying for. We want to put 30% of our site in open space. Right now, there's 0% of the site in open space. We want to pay the town impact fees for any of the homes we build. We want to remove the septic tanks that are currently servicing the 31 homes, add gravity sewer, pay those Mount Pleasant Waterworks impact fees, and then we want to beautify our section of 6 Mile roadway. We want to do all that, and we want to increase the lot count by 0. We want to maintain what is currently there. I think it is unprecedented. I think it's an incredible opportunity for the town. I also want to mention that the R2 zoning has a 30% open space requirement per town ordinance. If we go to Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District, that is a requirement of 20% open space. 10% open space on a tract this size is approximately an acre. So it's an acre more of open space for the R2 as opposed to the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District. We're here if you have any questions. Thank you for your time.
George Freeman.
Good evening. George Freeman, 1450 Bowman Road, Director of Community Activity for Cage. Before 1994, spot zoning was out of control in the state and the county. During that time, Mount Pleasant placed their city dump in the 6 Mile community, and the county approved 3 trailer parks. The dumps site is still in existence, but 2 of the trailer parks are gone, replaced with appropriate zoning. The third is about to go away, but the owner is requesting a non-conforming R2 spot zoning. At the planning committee meeting, the owner made the statement that the density between the community conservation and the proposal for this location are the same. The R2 zoning allow up to 5 lots to physically cluster on an acre, while community conservation only allow 3 lots per acre. The residents of 6 Mile and the residents of the town of Mount Pleasant, via the comprehensive plan, agree that the community conservation is the appropriate zoning for this location. Therefore, we request that you deny, let me change that. Therefore, we request that you respect the will of the people and deny this zoning request. The community conservation zoning protects the community and protects the trees. Thank you.
Linda Balzac.
Hey, Linda Balzac, 422 Hopcaw Drive. I'm here regarding the old historic district houses that were going to be voted on tonight. I was at the planning meeting on February 1st, and they took 2 off of the historic list. They were voted in unanimously, and one is 704 Pitt Street, which is a client of mine. They designated it
Ma'am,
non-historic.
can you speak a little louder or into
Sure.
the microphone?
This is, oh yeah, sorry. I'm not good with this either.
It might be my ears, but
All right.
I'm
That's
sorry.
all right. You can read my lips now.
Which
'Cause that's
address
what
on Pitt were you saying?
I have to do. Okay, so there's two houses that are on the list that should not be historic that are being voted on tonight, and that was voted in by the planning board meeting on February 4th. And the two houses are 704 Pitt Street, which is the old Heist House, but not much is left at all of it that is visible, and 826 Pitt. So I saw them on the draft of the list from tonight and just wanted to make sure that that was noted that the planning board said we could let those two be non-historic. Now I'm calm, I can talk more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Edward Lee.
Good evening. Edward Lee, 158 6th Avenue, Mount Pleasant, in the community of Scanlonville. As some of you may know, that I've been involved in the comprehensive plan effort for more than years. Now it's been decades. And as I remember in those efforts, we always mentioned the settlement communities. And there was always identified a need to protect and preserve. So the council has recognized that there's a significant contribution from our settlement communities and significant enough to protect and preserve. The community of 6 Mile has identified the requested change in zoning as a threat to their community. I would hope that you guys would respect their wishes and vote the appropriate way to be in compliance with what we have in the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
That's all that signed up?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone who did not sign up who would like to speak?
Here we go. Kevin Cunane, you have my address. I submit freedom of information requests regularly to the town. Sometimes you just get back mundane stuff, but other times you get roadblocked. It's like the Mount Pleasant deep state doesn't want certain things to be known, I guess. You would think it's weird, right, that would go on here, but it's a big building, there's a lot going on upstairs. And you submit requests for things, and there's a dance that's done, and you don't get answers back. Some simple things. How many miles does the mayor's car drive every year around town, and how much are we paying for it? For some reason, that's not known. Nobody wants to fess up what that is. What's the cost? It's a part-time mayor position. He's out running around the town doing various self-promotion tours, like at vaccine sites and other places, which is fine. He's a public relations guy. Go ahead, go do it. Why am I paying for his gas for that? I checked, did council vote on sending the mayor or a council member to the vaccine site? Nope. There was no council action. So who's controlling what goes on? Is it some kind of secret cabal upstairs, or is the council running the town as they're supposed to? You know, is there somebody rogue? I don't know the answer, but you should start asking those questions, because what happens is people ask questions and seek out information, and if it doesn't come back, one, it's a pretty big black eye that looks like, well, what are you hiding? Because this is a public building. We own this place. We own all the work product upstairs too. So things should be released. One request I got back said, I'm not going to respond to anything from Kevin Cunane on advice of my personal attorney. That was from the mayor. He didn't name his personal attorney. They didn't sue me for what I asked for. They've threatened me before, but never been sued. It's just, when is this council? You've been given 8 instances when you first got in. I sent you a letter with 8 instances of the mayor abusing his authority. Not one of those has been challenged, not one. Maybe 1 or 2 of them have an open case involved that you didn't want to talk, okay, so we'll make it 6. 6 instances of abusing authority. What has council done? Nothing. I mean, I've had a few conversations. I've had a conversation, I think, with all of the council members about these issues. And still, no action, no action, no action. It's like, what are you afraid of? Are you running the town, or is one single official running the town, running around doing what he wants on his own? It's not how it's supposed to work. And it's not why you're up there, to let somebody run the town on their own. You know, I've been up here saying, giving you exact examples, posting pictures of kids in a park to criticize them because of Corona. I mean, if it was your kids, Mr. Rambo, Miss Hyatt, anybody with little kids, Miss Whitley, what would you think of that? You think that's okay? I have teenagers, and I don't think it's okay. I don't want a public official posting stuff about my family. And I want the council to start looking at things like that. What would you do if it was you? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Lou Waters. I live at 771 Long Point Road in the Snowden community, and I am also the president of the Snowden Community Civic Association. I am here in support of what's going on in 6 Mile community to support that community. One of the things that was mentioned before was the comprehensive plan. One of the things in the comprehensive plan is about the settlement communities, protecting the character and the way of life in those communities. Also, the Sweetgrass Overlay District had the intent of also helping to preserve those communities. I would like to think that these two documents are worth more than a paper that is written on, and it's about trust. And also, if you hope to preserve these communities, you need to listen to their needs. Also, recently, there's been a settlement commission that was started where some of the community leaders have been. I hope that this is not what a preset agenda to meet just to say you're meeting, and to not just treat the symptom, but to treat the cause of the problem by listening to the communities and also allowing them to be in the forefront of the agenda to promote buy-in and also to promote change, to protect those who have been here instead of those who come here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Louis Jefferson. I reside at 1128 McKnight Road, 7 Mile, Mount Pleasant. And I would like for those who are in attendance this evening that's in favor of asking committee to deny the request for the zone change in 6 Mile to please stand for me, please. I got here late this evening because of an accident on Johnny Dodds. That's the road that was built because the residents of Mount Pleasant did not want traffic to come through the town. They wanted to save Mount Pleasant, as it were, and simply that's what we're asking to do. I kind of adjusted my request when I heard the reason for approving this zone request. And it was as if it was Mount Pleasant against the community of 6 Mile. And it was said it was an incredible opportunity for the town. I think we've had more than enough of that kind of thing. And the town was perhaps enticed by impact fees. It would tie into sewer, and you would gain funds. You'd be paying taxes, so forth and so on. And it was placed against the community and the citizens of 6 Mile. There is no price tag suitable for that. So we're not going to sell out, so no one can buy out. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Denise Terrio. I'm at 1324 Bluebird Drive. I came here to talk about 1277 Chuck Dolly in the SCNG building, but I did not know all this was going on at 6 Mile. So I just want to say I support all of these residents are coming out and speaking out on behalf of not upzoning, rezoning this protected community. Absolutely, I'm behind that 100%. As respect to 1277 Chuck Dolly, it's come to my attention that they've applied for a rezoning of PI2 from AB. So I guess because they've had a laydown yard that they've been using this use for years, now they want to make it legal, make their use legal. Although me and my neighbors do not have a problem with it being a laydown yard, as it has been for years, we do have alarm as to what the upzone to PI2 could entail for the future use of this land. We cannot guarantee that SENG will own this property forever. And as we know, zoning is zoning. It cannot be conditioned. It follows the land. If SENG sells in 5 years, we could have a wastewater treatment facility on Chuck Dolly. So I don't know how this flew under the radar, my radar, as far as what the public hearing had happened at planning. There were no public comments, as far as I can see, on the minutes of planning. But I will assure you, if this passes tonight, I will be knocking on doors tomorrow to every adjacent neighborhood and landowner that surrounds this property. It's huge, this property. And they'll be standing behind me on second reading. So thank you for your consideration. I did suggest maybe another way out, whether it be a zoning special exception application that would allow them to continue the laydown yard, but to let them, it's almost like someone stealing your car and you saying, well, here, take the title. You know, like they've been doing a use that's not been permitted, and then we're going to give them the stars and the moon to do all of these other uses that PI2 entails. So if there's another way, I'd be in support of a laydown yard to continue, but PI2, no. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Amy Rudy from 1232 Melvin Bennett. I also just wanted to say that I do support the 6 Mile community 100%, so everyone that's here is supporting the 6 Mile community and opposing what's happening, I agree and support you 100%. Outside of that, I live at 1232 Melvin Bennett, and I am here to oppose the rezoning of 1277 Chuck Dolly for SENG. I say that because it's literally, quite literally, right next to our neighborhood. And lessons learned, especially on June 12th, 2018, is that zoning is zoning is zoning, and it cannot be conditioned in any form. The council here for the town of Mount Pleasant actually said that multiple times as we came to meeting after meeting after meeting, fighting this for about 3 years. The property on 1236 Melvin Bennett is directly adjacent to my house, and you guys rezoned it from R1 to AB. Immediately upon rezoning, after the developer said, hey guys, we're gonna do these plans, and I'm gonna Boy Scout promise that's gonna happen, he literally put a sign out front that said build to suit. So he doesn't care about zoning. He doesn't care about putting up something that was supposed to be stocks that's actually from Litchfield Plantation and Pawleys Island and not here in Mount Pleasant. He didn't care about an office space. He cared about rezoning the property and making money off of it, 100%. And now if you drive down Melvin Bennett or if you drive into the Moss Park community, you can see where he's completely annihilated the land. It's an eyesore, it's disgusting. I don't know what he's gonna do. Pipes are everywhere. It's absolutely obnoxious, and it was all because the land was rezoned. My concern is that this location, 1277 Chuck Dolly, is right in the heart of a residential community. Mallard Lakes, Moss Park, Melvin Bennett, across the street, etc. If you want to do P12 or PI2, then that means they can do something as like a substation, electrical wiring, waste community, etc., which is going to poison our land, poison our area, and essentially we're going to have an Aaron Brockovich situation on our hands. Do we really want that for our community? Thank you for your time.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. That concludes the public comment section 6 of our agenda. Section 7 is our consent agenda.
Motion to approve all consent agenda items.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
That's final reading of consent agenda items A, B, C, D, and E.
Section 8 is planning new business. I believe our planning director is joining us via Teams. Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
We are on planning Section A, new business, item number 1, which is a resolution about the list of historic properties for historic designation in the Old Village District.
correct.
If you'd like to take it from there, please.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you. So Jeff spent a considerable amount of time on this at the January meeting. So I'm going to kind of touch on what has occurred since then. And as you'll recall, the zoning ordinance was amended to allow properties 50 years or older eligible. And so the Historic District Preservation Commission did an extensive review. They started with approximately 140 properties. And after reviewing them and looking to see whether they were contributing or not, they whittled that down to 35 properties. A public hearing was advertised for town council last month. And at that time, in between the meeting and then the public hearing, we had 5 property owners either come to the meeting or provide written correspondence requesting that their respective properties not be included. At that time, council decided to send this back to committee for further review. Committee reviewed this, mostly these 5 properties, and at their February 1st meeting, they did decide to recommend that only 2 be removed, and that's 704 Pitt Street and 826 Pitt Street. And so that is what is before you tonight. And I have moved these slides up so that you can see. 704 Pitt Street is the old ice house, and as you heard, much of what would make it contributing.
I'd like to make a motion.
Hold a second. All right.
I'd like to make, in order to amend it, do we have to make a motion to approve first and then an amendment?
Yes, sir. The recommended procedure is, if that's the
Okay,
scenario,
so
motion to approve.
I'll start
second.
with, I'd like to make a motion to approve item A1.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we are in discussion. Mr. Rambo.
All right, I would like to make a motion to amend, excuse me, item A1 by removing all 5 of those properties who objected, and that includes 704 Pitt Street, 826 Pitt Street, 503 Pitt Street, 740 Pitt Street, and 627 Pitt Street.
Second.
All right, so the motion is to amend, and it is, all of these are on Pitt Street, 704, 826, 503, 740, and 627. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chapman.
I would like for everyone to see what the additional houses look like so they understand why the planning committee decided to keep them in. This area of town is our historic area. The houses that we took out, I think had, at our meeting, had reason to do that because of their character, in particular the ice house. It doesn't bear any semblance to what was there. I realize there is an issue of trying to maintain our historic neighborhoods, but having some people not want to be in it. I get that. But there are too many instances lately where when they're not in, it's a whole lot easier to knock them down. And that's happening in the Old Historic District. The houses are being knocked down, built much bigger, and not in the character of the district. So I'm going to vote against the amendment.
Mr. O'Rourke.
Based on that, Mr. Chapman, if a homeowner wants to rip down the house and build another one, don't they have to submit plans to the actual historic district to get approval before they can construct kind of whatever they want?
They do.
So I guess what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, that commission will have some say-so in what that final product will be. It won't, you mentioned being out of character. I think that district can keep it within character, maybe.
Not what's been shown up lately.
Mm-hmm.
So That's my reason. We reviewed them
Sure.
all, and I know other committee members want to speak as well, so I'll just keep quiet.
Mrs. Hyatt?
Yes, we did. I looked at these in person, and it was explained to us that all these houses are already in the historic district. So they already have to go through a process, as you mentioned. And all this does is sort of add one more step. It protects them a little more. And they still can apply and go through the process, and it still might be approved to be torn down. But I agree that what's being built often does not fit the character of the area, and it's our responsibility, I think, to try to preserve our historic district as best we can. And I saw those other homes, and they very much deserve to be preserved and fit in the character of our historic district. So that's why we narrowed it down to just those two that seem more appropriate that we could eliminate. But they would still have the option to have them torn down if they wanted to apply. This doesn't eliminate that.
Ms. Whitley?
Yeah, when we examined these and we looked at kind of the requests from the homeowners or from their representatives as to why they wanted out, some of them just wanted out because they didn't want to be in. Others had actual architectural justifications, like the ice house is only like a sliver of it is still the ice house, and the rest is, bricks from Lowe's. So I think that, for us, there was no architectural justification to move them out of it, and this system that is the structure of it is not an opt-in, opt-out sort of structure that we've set up here. So that's why we chose to only opt out 2 of the 5 properties.
And for clarity, which are the 2 of the ones that are listed in the amendment? Which are the 2 that the committee agreed to exempt?
I believe it was 704 Pitt and 826 Pitt.
Okay, so those 2, the committee already, okay. So let me just get clear, Mr. Parliamentarian, if the amendment does not pass, the reading of what came out of the committee does exclude those 2. Is that correct? The motion to pass, well, let me flip to it. I got too many pages going here. This is an amendment to item A1.
Right.
Right. So what came out of committee, which is item A1, already excludes those, or would we need another amendment?
No, sir. If this amendment fails, for example, then another amendment could be made in your example
To do what
for
the
those
committee did?
properties.
Got
Yes,
it.
sir.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was already put in there. Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Rambo, and then
Okay,
Mr.
so for instance, I don't know, Michelle, if we can click on 627 Pitt Street. And I've been in communication with a few of these owners. So this is a manufactured home. And it was brought here from basically the naval base on Sullivan's Island, which that's what is making it historic, because it used to be on the naval base. But I mean, as a property owner, how can you tell somebody that, you can't take down your manufactured structure and build a real home? Build a permanent home. I guess I just don't even understand all of the justification for it. And every property owner that I've talked to had very good cases for not being included in this. And I think it's important that we respect, many of them have owned their homes for a long, long time. And it's their biggest investment. And we should respect their right to their property.
May I ask a clarification? Is that a manufactured home or a modular built home? Do we know? Would you give us some clarification on that? There is a difference. I just want to.
It is not a manufactured home.
No,
I don't believe, no.
It's from the 40s. It was stick-built. It's not manufactured in any sense of the way. I'm working on it with the people that own it right now.
Okay.
So it is not manufactured, but there's not much left of what was original. Anyway, I'm working on a project for the people.
All right, thanks. Just wanted to get that cleared up. I had no idea. All right, Ms. Santos, yes, sir.
Well, I was just going to say I agree with Mr. Rambo and Mr. O'Rourke as well. I don't want to drag somebody into this historic district against their will. You know, their home is their castle, and if they don't want to come in, I don't think we should drag them in. And maybe somewhere down the line that they will make that decision to come in, but I just don't feel like we should include them if they don't want to be included.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Lanning.
We've gone through some of these pictures. Can you please put back up, so 806 we just saw, and 754. I don't know if we saw 754. Oh, was that not one of the ones? I'm sorry. Well, it was the ones with the stars next to them?
Yes, it's the one
I'm
with the
sorry.
stars.
I'm sorry. But this one showed up. This one showed up, 754. Okay, there we go, yep. So is it even, do we know why this person, were they saying we just don't want to be in? Is that one of the ones? Or they just said we don't want to be in?
This isn't one of the ones.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible to show each one that's starred
I don't know what's in, okay.
so that they know what we're talking about?
These are the ones that are in the motion to remove, let's be clear. 503, okay, that's 503, all right. I'm looking at the motion. All right, next. That's okay, we all do. All right, there's 510's not in this motion.
627.
627 is, we just discussed that one, all right.
704.
704, okay.
740.
Right. Okay.
Could you go back to 704 for Mr. Rambo?
Yeah, I
think
was-
he had a question.
I was, 740. actually.
740.
I was going to make a comment. So I've been communicating with this owner, and I mean, he makes a very good case. Significant areas of his home were damaged during Hugo and completely redone and renovated, which would make large portions of his home only, how long ago was that now? 30-something? 30-something years old? And so anyway, those justifications seemed very fair.
Yes, ma'am.
I think for me, it's not even about we're the judge and jury of whether that house looks like it should be torn down or not. I just, I'm going to have to agree with Councilman Santos and Rambo. I'm just not about making that decision for those homeowners.
All right. Any other discussion before we vote? This would be on the amendment. A yes vote is to remove those 5. I think we better, oh, are you asking? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were asking to be recognized. Would the clerk call the roll? A yes vote is to approve the amendment of those 5 properties.
Ms. Whitley?
No.
Ms. Whitley votes no. Mr. Chapman?
No.
Mr. Chapman votes no. Ms. Corley?
Yes.
Ms. Corley votes yes. Ms. Hyatt?
No.
Ms. Hyatt votes no. Ms. Landing?
Yes.
Ms. Landing votes yes. Mr. O'Rourke?
No.
Mr. O'Rourke votes no. Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Mayor Heaney?
Did you skip Mr. Rambo? Bo? Yeah, skip
I
Mr.
did.
Rambo.
My apologies,
All right.
Mr. Rambo.
Mr. Rambo?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mayor Heaney?
No.
Mayor Heaney votes no.
Okay, so let's see if I got this right. 5-4 vote, the motion fails.
Mayor, I'd like to move to amend the resolution to remove the 2 properties that Planning Committee referenced, 704 Pitt and 826 Pitt.
Second.
704, 826, we have a motion. This is to remove. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? None? All right. All in favor of the motion to amend, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
1? Okay. All right.
This is to approve, I thought.
to approve,
This is
to approve the amended,
That was to take
the
out,
amendment to take out those two. You can,
all five failed.
do you want to revote?
Just to take out two.
So it's yes? Okay. So it's, it passes unanimously. Okay. Thanks for speaking up, Gary. I'm glad you pointed that out. Okay. So now we have the amendment that has passed that exempts property 704 and 826 Pitt. So now we will be voting to pass the, what are we actually calling this, an ordinance?
Resolution.
Resolution, yep, to pass the resolution. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Well, I'm sorry, we
Already
don't
been
need it.
moved.
Already is a motion.
We don't need it. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, so there's one no vote. Mr. Santos?
Mr. Santos, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, I said no.
Okay, I'm sorry, two no votes. Okay, so the motion is approved. All right, item number 2.
Okay, this is a text amendment that staff with committee has been working on for close to a year, actually, and it's an ordinance to amend our non-conforming lots, structures, and uses ordinance. As I mentioned, it started back in March of last year, where really what drove the decision to make this amendment was some of the non-conforming uses that came as a result of the Boulevard Overlay District, and was sort of the impetus for this. How do we handle our non-conforming uses and structures with regards to if we have a natural disaster versus normal wear and tear and those sorts of things? And so historically, there's been a very hard approach to getting rid of nonconformities, and the trend now is going towards a more softer approach and perhaps dealing with them in different ways depending on how they are non-conforming. And so as you can see, we did start in March. We took it to Planning Commission for the public hearing in December. Planning Commission had some great recommendations, as you can see, and a lot of it just had to do with making everything consistent throughout the ordinance and cleaning up a few things. And so here we are now, and on the next slide, you can see that we have an overview where we have our purpose and intent, our general provisions, and our definitions. And then we get into repairs, damage, modification, changes to nonconformities. And probably one of the most important parts of this is the degree of compliance, where we get into 3 classes or 3 tiers. And then last, we talk about our exceptions and our appeal process. So as I mentioned, really the catalyst for doing this was to address issues related to damage or destruction. So that's a big part of this. We do want to talk about the fact that when we mention a nonconformity, that implies that it was established legally according to the ordinances that were in place at that time. So when we say it's legally nonconforming, that is what we mean when we talk about this. If it was created illegally, the nonconforming ordinance does not apply. We did add a provision whereby if by government action a parcel of land owned by a private property owner is left nonconforming, they are not held accountable for that. And so we wanted to create that because we know that this has come up over the years, whether it's taking right-of-way or certain things like that. We didn't want to penalize the property owner when it's the result of government action. Next, we get into the damage or destruction due to unforeseen hazard. And really what comes out of this, and the most important part, is that if your house or your structure or your commercial site is damaged due to a storm or some sort of unforeseen hazard, whether it's damaged 1% or 100%, the owner can make an in-kind replacement and perform reconstruction in accordance with the certain limitations that are laid out in this ordinance. On the next slide is where we get into the different levels of nonconformities. And as I mentioned, this is really a a softer approach and is the trend as to how many municipalities are dealing with nonconformities. And it separates them out based on the use of land, and this would be Class 1 nonconformity. And then on the next slide, we have Class 2, which deals with buildings and structures. And this section actually separates it out based on whether it's a principal building or an accessory structure. And then last, we have Class 3, which deals with your site features and your lots of record. And then what's important in Class 3 is where we have established the importance of making certain improvements over others. And so we have this hierarchy of why is it the site non-conforming, and whether it's parking, stormwater, landscaping. This gives the zoning administrator and staff and the appropriate review board the discretion to look at why it's non-conforming and to allow certain instances where we look at the importance of reuse of a property over not being able to use it at all because you have to bring it into complete compliance. And so this is really an important part of this draft ordinance that we think is going to help us moving forward. Last, we get into the exceptions. And we already have one, obviously, for the Old Village Historic District. We wanted to add one for mobile homes. This comes up frequently when we annex properties in from the county, and they're automatically annexed in to a zoning district that does not allow mobile homes. So we wanted to allow some more flexibility here where if a mobile home needs to be replaced, the owner does not have to rezone their property. And then last, we wanted to allow, much like the Old Village, an exception to special plans and zoning areas. And an example of this would be the Shim Creek Overlay District, where if we later on do a special area plan that specifically deals with the challenges and the nonconformities that that area deals with, that any sort of non-conforming issue that comes up, we would go to that special area plan and that would be accepted from this non-conforming ordinance. And then of course there's an appeal process, and as with any other zoning code provision, and that's all I have for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Do we
Move
have
for approval, Mayor.
we have a motion to approve?
Second.
And I want to comment after.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. We are in discussion. You have the floor.
Mr. Rambo, this is something that you were very, very conscious about.
Yes.
And I had some concerns. And I want to tell you that the staff and the Planning Commission did a great job coming up with this proposal, because having been through a number of disasters in various locations, sometimes my house, sometimes other people's houses, this is a good change to our ordinance to allow people to build back what they have. So I commend you for bringing this to us.
I want to commend the committee. It was a lot of hard work, and you, Jake, too, for bringing it to our attention, and our staff. I think y'all have done a good job. I just wanted to ask the committee, I know y'all have done a lot of work on this. Is there anything that, this sounded so comprehensive, is there anything else we need to consider or discuss, think about on this, or we got it right?
Yeah.
All right.
Time will tell.
All right. Any other comments before we vote? All right, the motion is to approve this item. So all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. O'Rourke had excused himself, but the motion would carry regardless. Am I okay on that? Okay.
8-0, yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
It's the first reading, ordinance number 21007.
All right, item number 3 has to do with annexation of a 1-acre tract of
Move
land.
to approve.
Second.
I was going to do both of them.
Oh, wait, as the applicant requested this, sorry, I just saw that.
Yeah, the applicant reached out today. This was the property to be annexed in and by Habitat for Humanity, and they have requested to withdraw at this time while they explore some other options.
Okay.
All right, I withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw the second.
So that's not a deferral, so we don't need to vote. Sorry, Tom, we voted in your absence, but it was unanimous. I didn't want to chase you down. All right, so that item number 3 has been withdrawn. That moves us to item number 4, which is the Theodore Road property.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I would like to mention, when we get to the zoning part, that this is a area that, when it came to the Planning Commission, they had some concerns about it. And the concerns were that this was out in a rural area, and it ended up getting zoned R4, and which is different than we have on another item on the agenda. So I just wanted to mention that. But
So
I am going to vote to.
This is on item 4. This is simply the annexation.
Yes, sir.
All right. The motion is to approve. We have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes unanimously.
First reading, ordinance number 21009.
All right. Next is the zoning of that parcel.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. If there's no other discussion, I do have a question. All right, clarify to me why zoning this R4 medium density is not an issue, is not a controversial issue.
I don't have
sorry.
an answer. I don't have an answer.
Okay.
Except that it's immediately adjacent to what has already been developed. So the gentleman wanted to annex in and simply get the same zoning, which is adjacent to him, and that's why.
Okay.
But
Yes,
I
sir.
have no other.
Mr. Rambo.
I feel like this is just repeating past mistakes. I mean, just because the property next to it was, in my opinion, mistakenly zoned R4, doesn't mean we should continue this R4 trend. We're going to talk about an item later where it's replacing a number of residential units with an equivalent number of residential units, which is a different issue than saying there's one house on this piece of property and now we can put a lot more than one house. And so to me, I'm not in favor of increasing density just because their neighbor did it. So for me, I'm against it.
Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Santos.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you know, we have to be conscious of the growth boundary line as well. During the comprehensive plan, I didn't hear that very often, people talking about the growth boundary line. And as we get further out toward our borders, it should be more and more less dense as we're going out that way. But it appears that some of the new subdivisions that are being built out that way, that it seems to be getting more and more dense than less dense, which is what our growth boundary line was designed to do. So I just want to make sure that we understand that and everybody keeps that in mind as we start, people start moving further out, that we should be actually, instead of 3 houses per acre, there should be 1 house per acre. I think that's what the comprehensive plan calls for, if I'm not mistaken.
Mr.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lanning.
So isn't it true, since we've already voted on the annexation, that it would come into the town as R1 unless we change? Okay.
It's community
And the reason that the owner is requesting R4 is because of what's already built on the property? They want to build on the property more dense?
No.
I think it's what the neighbor has.
So if I may.
I know about
Sandy.
that part. I just mean what's on his property right now.
Yeah, so the subject property has a single-family dwelling. His adjacent property, which is already R4, is vacant. If Martine can go down a couple slides, you'll be able to see what he would like to do. Go down one more. Right there, what the applicant would like to do and how this came up was he wanted to adjust his property line between his 2 parcels. And we were not able to do that, obviously, because they're in different jurisdictions. If he automatically annexes in, then 1051 will be R1, and then you'll have different zoning districts. And so in order for him to adjust his lot line that approximately 10 feet between his two properties, he needs to have the same zoning in place to do that. And that's what is before you, and that's the reasoning.
So, yes, ma'am, Ms. Hyde.
So it's true, to move the line, they need to be the same zoning, so he could just as easily ask for that R4 to go to R1.
He could rezone the other property R1. Yes, I don't. He chose to apply for R4 since he already had a property zoned R4. But you're correct, that's an option.
Okay. We don't do comment during this. This is council discussion. But someone here could ask you a question if so be desired. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'd like to ask you a question then, sir. Thank you. Do you mind coming up?
There you go. Thank you for understanding that.
Yes, there was two reasons why I was making the request. If you would notice the buffer between the new development and my property, as I stated earlier, the development corporation deeded me that portion on both of my property. That's why you see all of it's Mount Pleasant. As I stated earlier, when I wake up in the morning, I go feed my animals, I'm in Mount Pleasant, but my house is in Allendale. So if you look at that borderline there, that was deemed no man's land, and they deeded it to us. In addition to that, I did want to move the property line over. There were some trees that was planted generations ago that I wanted to adjust up our line. So there are two reasons why I'm asking or requesting for annexation.
Okay.
So, since I...
Yes, ma'am, you have the floor.
So the question was, because we've already voted to annex you in, so thank you for asking, and we appreciate that. But why would your 1051, we understand that it would have to be the same as the other to move your property line. Is there a particular reason why you can't change 1065 to R1? Because we're trying to, especially further out towards Allendale, we're trying to keep things a little bit less dense.
Yes, and I do certainly understand that. At some future time, I would like to have that property for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be more attractive from an economic standpoint to me to sell than it being R1 as opposed to R4.
I don't know, I know a lot of folks that are buying nice land out in Allendale and building on 1 acre.
That would drastically, should I say, decrease the value if it's reverted back to R1.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. The motion is to approve on the R4 or Weeper. Yes, sir.
One
you
more
have-
question.
Sure.
When I was looking at this earlier, on the future land use map, it looked like it was community conservation under future land use. So why would it come in as R1 instead of community conservation?
So the future land use under the current comprehensive plan calls for this area to be used for settlement community land uses. Our zoning ordinance has in place where if you don't request a specific zoning, you will automatically annex in and be zoned R1. That is currently, with our new comprehensive plan and our zoning ordinance in place, that's something that we're working on over the next couple months to hopefully make those sorts of changes. But the way our current zoning ordinance is written, it would automatically annex in as R1 and not community conservation.
No, he's asking for.
Any other questions? Any questions? Did anybody want to be recognized? Yes, ma'am.
I had a question, actually for the applicant. I'm so sorry to ask you to come forward again, but I just have a, so, what is the purpose in moving the property line?
Well, as I stated earlier, the property line kind of meanders closer to my house. And if I was to future have a sale of additional property, it would be too close. In addition to that is some trees that were planted there generations ago. I didn't want to lose that portion of my current residence where I reside at.
But it looks like you're expanding the size of the R4 lot, right? You're not expanding the size of your property.
I'm expanding the size, just the opposite. I'm expanding the size of my property.
Can we see that slide? I'm sorry. It looks...
But like I said, more importantly, what's not issued there is like equally important to me is that zone there, that strip of property that was deeded to me. So basically, when I walk out of my backyard, I'm in Mount Pleasant, right on the residence I live on. If y'all would understand that, that's basically a very important issue to me.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, do y'all do see what I'm referring to? Because there's no boundary lines, there's just a strip of property there, but was deeded to all of the property owners on that particular piece of parcel.
Which strip of property are you
If
speaking
you
of?
look, if you see all those numbers, you look in that middle ground right there, that zone there, there's nothing there. But
Where it says
that's-
Theodore?
Yeah, well, no, ma'am, you're looking on where the development, the brown portion.
Okay.
Okay, you see where 1051,
The pink?
1065 is.
Yeah.
Look, the additional brown spot over there, ma'am, if you look at that carefully.
Okay.
There's nothing there, but that was deeded to all the property owners, which
If you
is
go to
my
the
backyard.
aerial,
I'm sorry.
you'll see what he's talking about.
The strip of property, you don't see nothing, you don't see any
If we
numbers.
could have Eric LaFontaine, or whoever's doing the, go to the aerial, there you go. Thank you.
And I do have documentation that's been deeded to them, yes, property owner.
I see. So you're looking to expand the size of 1051?
Yes, ma'am, and 1065 and 1060, they've already been expanded, ma'am. You just don't see it on the property line, but it's already been expanded. But yes, ma'am, to answer your question, I am expanding 1051, which is taking up a portion of 1065.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you. Because I feel like the previous slide, like, is it the green line is the old border, and then we're moving it into the 1065? Is that, Michelle, is that what it is?
No, ma'am. So it was my understanding that if he rezones 1051 to R4, he would like to move the property line and make 1065 a little bit wider, as was shown in that the next slide with the green.
1051 a little bit wider.
10,
No,
yeah, he wants 1051 wider.
no.
1051 wider. Okay, I'm sorry.
So the
Okay.
That's what he said.
Is that good? Are we good? Everybody ready?
I'm a little confused here.
Yeah.
I just want to, I'm sorry. excuse
Go ahead.
me,
No,
Mr.
you
Mayor,
have
just-
the floor.
I'm just a little, I think everybody's, I'm a little confused. So you actually live on 1051 or 10,
Yes, sir, I reside at
all right, 1051?
Yes.
And you want to rezone the area there to where you're making you want to upzone, I guess, your property instead of just expanding that line according to what you already are zoned. You want to change the zoning on your property to R4
Yes.
instead of R1 is what it is.
Yes, sir. 1065 is already R1, already R4, and 1051 is currently 10.
Right.
it's currently
So you want to upzone is what you're trying to do.
Yes, I'm trying to expand so I could keep a portion of where I reside at. And
Okay.
in addition, I hope I make myself clearly that zone of property there, the map doesn't give it an accurate reflection, but if you would take a look behind that zone, behind that strip of property, that's also my property. So I've got Mount Pleasant on this side and behind me with my shed.
I understand.
As well.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask Ms. Reed something, if that's okay. Ms. Reed, how many houses can he build on R4 as opposed to the R1?
So regardless of the zoning, the density allowed here is 3 units per acre. If the property is under an acre, then the density is controlled by the development standards of the zoning district. So whether it's R4 or R1, he's not going to be allowed anything more than 3 units an acre, and it will be controlled by the development standards.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm very big on property rights for individuals. I just am concerned here that we're looking at another situation like we've been, quite frankly, scolded many times by the community when we considered going from something like this, where we are on the edge of town, where it is a beautiful piece of land and I'm sure a lovely home, and it looks to me like the homes nearby you are also one home on a lot there. It's only across behind the buffer that you have these smaller lots. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out why you want to change to something that has the potential to end up with, it looks like maybe, I don't know how much acreage is this?
0.8, I
Point.
think.
Total for both lots?
If you look at this map also, this is a clearer depiction. You see the building behind my house?
Mm-hmm.
That's in Mount Pleasant. Where that shed is, where that
Mhm.
structure is, that's in Mount Pleasant.
Well, we've already annexed in, so you're going to be in, all of you will be in Mount Pleasant now, right?
Okay, that's
Yeah,
basically
that
my
part we're
concern.
good.
That's my concern.
So the issue is, why would we want to say, okay, now you can take this and, I don't know, add, what, four more properties on this? That's what it, 4 or 5 maybe?
I think it's less.
Well, I'm talking about both pieces. Is the
Oh,
whole thing only .8? No,
No.
it's closer to 2 acres, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am, that's
yeah.
correct.
It looks to me like you could put 5 more properties on there, and that seems like a lot of property on that space.
Well, I don't have a plan to sell any additional.
It's not you we're worried about.
I understand.
All right, we ready to vote? The motion is to approve. This is the rezoning to R4. I think we better call the roll, so a yes vote is to approve.
Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Ms. Corley?
No.
Ms. Corley votes no. Ms. Hyatt?
No.
Ms. Hyatt votes no. Ms. Landing?
No.
Ms. Landing votes no. Mr. O'Rourke?
No.
Mr. O'Rourke votes no. Mr. Rambo?
No.
Mr. Rambo votes no. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley?
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mayor Heaney?
No.
Mayor Heaney votes no.
So by 7-2, the upzoning to R4 fails, but it was annexed, so it is R1.
Mayor, just for the property owner's benefit, this is first reading on
First
the
reading.
annexation, and it
Yes.
wouldn't be annexed until another vote.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, that concludes item 5. Let's move on to item number 6. This is an ordinance to rezone from AB area-wide business to public institution 2. Ms. Reed?
Yes, sir. So this is the Dominion Energy property located at 1277 Chuck Dolly Boulevard. As you can see, it is zoned AB, area-wide business district right now. It is adjacent to Mallard Lakes, surrounded by Mallard Lakes, and then Bentley Park is the adjacent pink, which is zoned R4. The comprehensive plan does call for community facilities for this, and so the request to PI2 is appropriate for this property. So as I mentioned, it's a proposal to rezone. It's just under 5 acres, 4.87 acres, from AB to PI2. The parcel is also located in the Chuck Dolly Boulevard Overlay District. There is no request to change that portion of the designation. It is important to note that under the current AB zoning, the overlay does afford other uses, and that includes PI1 uses. So for close to 35 years, this site has served as the operations center for East Cooper, first SCE&G, and now Dominion Energy. The site is currently improved with a primary office building to the front. Behind that, there's a warehouse and then a truck shed towards the back of the property. In 2018, the in-person customer service function was removed from the front office building. While the office is no longer open for walk-in traffic or payments, employees do still occupy the office building, and then the electric operations employees continue to occupy the second office warehouse building. There is no change proposed to the day-to-day operations at this facility. The goal is actually just to ensure that adequate response is available in the event of a future storm. The proposed PI2 would more closely resemble the current use and activities that are performed on the site, and the location would continue to have the office and the operations staff, as well as the equipment and material storage. If approved, the Dominion Energy plans to build one new single office building and make improvements to the material storage and area and laydown yard. They did recently submit a feasibility plan to our town's design review team, and we were able to provide them initial feedback. And as you can see, if you go to the current survey of the property, Martine, it'll be a couple slides down. You can see what's currently on the property. Go down another one. One more. So this is what the site looks like right now. You have the old customer office area, the crew area in the back, and then you have that existing truck shed. And if you go to the next site, what they wish to do is to make improvements to the property. And so the conceptual plan on the next slide shows you that they'd like to make one large office building, and then the utility line truck would be covered parking in the back. This is a PI2 proposed site. There are additional standards that must be met with respect to features such as parking, storage, building and site design, screening and buffering, lighting standards, light pollution, and then consideration of adverse impacts on adjoining properties. So if the rezoning is approved, any improvements would be required and would need to minimize impacts on the adjacent property owners. That's all I have before you now, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have for me.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion for approval on item 6. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
I'll second for the purposes of discussion.
We have a second. Okay. Discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
In the event the property stays AB, and in the event it ends up getting sold, more than likely, the traffic impact on this 4.7 acres on Chuck Dolly Boulevard will require the residents living in the surrounding area to use Rifle Range Road. From a traffic impact, I think we need to go to PI2 as requested, because it would be less. Secondly, we have one of our major corporate citizens trying to beautify this property. That's the whole reason this came to us. This corporate citizen was trying to be a good neighbor and a good corporate citizen, trying to do better with the property. Finally, several years ago, when I was on the Planning Commission, SCE&G, who owned the property at the time, wanted to expand slightly to the north on property that is now the Bentley, I think it's Bentley subdivision. We had neighbors come to us objecting to the expansion of SCE&G to the north, and it ended up getting turned down by town council. Bentley came to the Planning Commission, came to town council, and it got built. And when it was being built, we got all kinds of complaints about it, and people saying, oh, we should have gone with SCE&G. But that was a day late and a dollar short. In this particular case, again, as Ms. Reed said, any improvements to this property in the future as PI2, they got to come back to the town to get authorization to do it. I don't think we're going to allow a wastewater pump station on it. I don't think we're going to allow a bus terminal on it. But if it's AB, we're going to allow gas stations, we're going to allow restaurants, we're going to allow commercial, and that traffic is going to just inundate Chuck Dolly. Whereas right now, we've got a good corporate citizen that wants to do something to improve the property and to make it look better for the neighbors. And again, thank Ms. Whitley for seconding my motion, but the right thing to do is to go forward so that they can make the improvements. That's the only reason it came to us. They were trying to work with the town staff on how to make these improvements.
Yep. Mr. Rambo had asked to be recognized, then Ms. Lanning.
I guess I have a few questions. So right now, the uses that they have on their property are non-conforming. They're using it as a lay-down yard. Why have they not been cited? I mean, if this was a private business completely ignoring the zoning code and just using it for a junkyard, lay-down yard, we would be citing them every day. So that's my first question. I'm not sure how it's gone on so long where they've been using it. They've been using property they haven't been allowed to use. I mean, I guess that's rhetorical. Anyway, I don't think that they should be treated any different than any private business should be treated. And then, so I'm having trouble getting past that.
Ms. Lanning.
So I'm just going to ask for recapping purposes. Why can they not, if their purpose, if it's AB right now, they have an office building and they want to add these other things, why can that not be done? Because you can't have a utility truck covered parking on AB, as an example? I'm sorry, Michelle?
Because they want to make improvements to their site, and they need to bring the zoning to a more appropriate zoning district for the use. Mr. Rambo, I can't speak specifically to, I know this site has operated here for the past 35 years. I'm not sure at what point it was zoned AB, if it was in the county and then came into the town. It may be that when it was established, it was conforming. I can't answer that, but it's been there for over 35 years. And so it's hard to tell whether it conformed at some point to a previous ordinance. But what we have now is a utility use in the AB district. And so wanting to make site improvements requires it to meet the current zoning.
Okay, so it was actually my question, but I guess you were piggybacking on Jake's comments. So the utility line truck covered parking and the utility equipment storage, other than beautification, which is a separate thing that can be done either way, those are the things that can't be done in AB?
Correct.
Because you can certainly have an office building in AB.
You can have an office building, but for this particular use as a utility, it really needs to be public institutional.
Because it's not what they are doing now, and it's not what they might intend to do. It's all these other things they could do. I mean, I'm in agreement that there's a lot of other things AB you wouldn't want there either, but when you see that some of the things that are available, fuel storage and dispensing, transportation terminal, no, we're not going to put a bus terminal there likely, but recycling and waste related. I mean, these are definitely not things you want right near a bunch of homes.
I'd like to address some of the comments that were made. Councilman Rambo and I sit on the Waterworks Commission, and we are finishing a, what is it, $35 million water treatment plant on Rifle Range Road that will manage and handle 9 million gallons of wastewater a day. Waterworks would be the only people licensed to do something like that, and that is not going to happen on this property. It's nowhere in the works. Trash or whatever, I guess since it's a public institution, and that's the question I have, I guess, Ms. Reed, what's the difference between public and private? In other words, could a private company come along and do something in a PI2 zoning? Other than a licensed public utility, which I know is privately owned, but it is a public utility, right? Serves the public.
PI2 does allow other uses. I mean, if you think about public institutional, you can do churches, schools, those sorts of things, government facilities, quasi-governmental, private utilities. So all of those things can function in a PI2.
So those are things that serve the public, basically necessities, schools, church, utilities, and things like that. The other point I wanted to make was it was said that this is what the comp plan supports. And we had 2 people here tonight speak against it, but we had the whole community input for well over a year on the comp plan. And this is how we, by death by 1,000 cuts of the comp plan. If the comp plan said this should be PI, then unless you want to amend the comp plan or make it not worth the paper it's written on, then don't support this. But the comp plan looked at this, neighborhoods came and everybody spoke, and we voted, we passed, and we said this should be PI. So I think second-guessing the comp plan now is not something that I'm comfortable with doing, so I'm going to go with it. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Michelle. Like, is there, I know that we can't condition zoning, but, I guess along the lines of what Mr. Rambo was saying, they've been doing this for 35 years. It's non-conforming. We just updated our non-conforming ordinance. I mean, if they want to improve what they've already got there, is there any, what's preventing them from doing that?
Well, once the new ordinance is in effect, they would then have to, we would have to consider the 50% rule, because it would not be an improvement due to a natural disaster or hazard. It would be because they need to make site improvements to better the operational facilities. And so we would have to look at those sorts of things, whether it exceeded that 50% rule. And if so, then those are the things that we would have to deal with. But that would certainly come into play, because it's not being destroyed due to a natural disaster.
Okay, and just to clarify, I thought that the 50% rule was now gone from the nonconformities ordinance. I thought it was 1 to 100% on the.
No, that's only if the structure is destroyed due to a natural disaster. So if a structure is destroyed due to a storm, a fire, something like that, they can build back. It doesn't matter. But if they choose to make improvements, or they want to make additions or expansions or those sorts of things, or if it's normal wear and tear, then it's held to that 50% standard.
So is there any way to, is there a different approach that could be done here that would permit them to make the site improvements without adding sort of this list of potential, horrible outcomes? Is there any way, is there a BOZA exception that they could go for, something like that, or does it really tie to the zoning?
It's really tied to the zoning. Our Board of Zoning Appeals is not allowed to grant use variances, so they can only grant a variance based on development standards, setbacks, things like that. So uses cannot be accepted or allowed through a variance. It can only be done through the zoning.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Hyatt.
I do want to ask, it currently has an office building, and they said improvements to the office building. How much larger is that building? That retention pond doesn't exist now, that size, and there are several grand trees on that property that aren't really depicted here, because these tiny little green circles look like they're going to take those out and plant little decorative trees. I don't know how you could put that retention pond and keep those grand oaks that line that street.
Well, this is a conceptual plan, and so if the zoning were approved, when they came through, we would have to look at all those things. We would look at stormwater. We would look at the trees. So I can't really. I'm not sure the size of this proposed new office building. Perhaps the applicants can speak better to that, but I can say that this is just a conceptual plan at this point.
Can I have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Michelle, so.
Yes, ma'am.
What would happen if we vote no and the zoning doesn't get changed? Then what happens? They're just out of compliance or not conforming, then what do we do?
Then they can't make any changes to the site to better it or to make it more efficient under the current operations. And we would have to revisit the fact that it is they are using it as equipment storage and a lay down facility. So those are some things that we would have to look at. But if the zoning isn't approved, under AB and in the overlay, they're allowed PI1 uses, but it would certainly limit their capabilities on this site.
Okay. Any, yes, ma'am, Ms. Lanning.
I have one more question, and that is, where did we miss it in the information that was presented? Because we have a copy of the ordinance itself, and we've had a fair amount of discussion, but it's only when our mayor brought it up that was clarified that this was already part of the comprehensive plan, supposed to be institutional. So it's AB now, and the comprehensive plan specifically calls for it to be institutional?
Yeah, it's zoned AB. The comprehensive plan that was recently adopted recommends it for community facilities in recognition for how it was used. And so I think that was probably, and Liz might be able to speak more to that, but I would say that the intent was to look at a future zoning to make it comply with how it has been utilized over the past 30 plus years and to make it consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Well, in that case, it seems like that would have been a way to present this. Because if it was presented initially as, hey, this is out of conformity right now with the comprehensive plan, a lot of time and effort, as what was said, and if we do this, it also allows Dominion to do the improvements they need to do, and the comprehensive plan probably would not allow for a recycling plant to show up there around people's neighborhood.
Ms. Reed, please clarify that last comment. The comprehensive plan does call for community or public institution, is that correct?
It does. The comprehensive plan recommends community facilities for this property. That would support public institutional 1 and 2 uses,
Okay.
whether that's a government facility, a church, a school, or a private or public utility. It supports all of those uses.
Okay, thank you.
I
Yes,
had one
ma'am,
last
Ms. Hyatt, and then I'm hearing that people want to call for the
Yeah.
question, please.
I just wanted to ask you again about the comment you made before. You said PI is allowed in the overlay?
So the overlay,
Because they're asking for
Of
PI
course.
2, so are they allowed PI in the current Chuck Dolly overlay?
correct, PI1, which is very limited in its uses, but yes, so the overlay district affords extra permitted uses. And as the underlying AB zoning, PI1 are some of those uses, but it does not afford PI2 uses. They need the rezoning for the underlying to PI2 to afford PI2 uses.
Okay, so PI 1 doesn't apply at all with what they've been doing, then, you're saying?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Did you want to make a comment?
Just a comment.
Sure.
My job got easier, in my opinion, after the comprehensive plan was passed. When I ran, I said that I thought we should work towards that and then support it. There were a lot of citizens, smart citizens, that sat around and did this. And I'll probably make this exact same speech at the next agenda item. But when we have these guiding principles that help me govern, it works. And I think, especially since the comprehensive plan was just passed, that we should try to stick to it as much as we possibly can. And that's why I will be voting for this.
Thank you. All right, I think everyone has spoken at least once or twice. The motion is to approve, so if the
Can we
clerk...
call
would-
for a roll? Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
if the
got it.
clerk would call the roll, please. A yes vote would be to approve.
Ms. Corley?
Yes.
Ms. Corley votes yes. Ms. Hyatt?
No.
Ms. Hyatt votes no. Ms. Landing?
Yes?
Ms. Landing votes yes. Mr. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. O'Rourke votes yes. Mr. Rambo?
No.
Mr. Rambo votes no. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley?
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Mayor Heaney?
Yes.
Mayor Heaney votes yes.
6 yes, 3 noes, the motion passes.
First reading ordinance number 21011.
All right, item number 7, annexation of 11.54 acre tract of land on 6 Mile Road.
Okay, this petition is to annex and zone R2. The 11.54 acre tract of land located at 6 Mile Road and known as the Watts Mobile Home Park. The petition does not include a request to be included in the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District. Do you want to take these requests separately, or would you like to hear them together?
Separately.
What's the will? Separately? All right. Committee, the committee, the council, the committee members of the council have said they'd like to hear them separately, so thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to go and make a motion to approve item 7.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve item 7, which is only the annexation.
Annexation.
Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that would move us to item 8. Do we have a motion?
Move to deny.
Motion to deny
Second.
and a second. Just briefly, this is would you just briefly tell us what this is, please, on item 8?
Yes, sir. So the request, as you recall, you saw this request last year, and that was to zone R4. The request before you tonight is to zone R2. So if you go to the chart that I have, Martine, it kind of shows you the differences in what is being requested. The R4 previously requested was for 4,000 square foot lots. There you go. The current request before you is 8,000 square foot lots. This does not change the density. The maximum density allowed on this property at 11.54 acres is 34 units. I know that the applicant has submitted a conceptual plan that we can get to in just a minute, but it shows only probably possibly getting 31 to 32 lots. But the maximum that could be achieved under the density is 34 units. The current zoning is S3 in Charleston County. That is also 3 units an acre. But if there's no water and sewer, the Charleston County zoning requires lots to be 14,500 square feet, which is more comparable to our community conservation zoning. The applicant has, I said, requested to develop it in accordance with the R2 standards. And if you go down to the conceptual plan and there it is right there. This was updated from what the committee members saw to try and address some concerns regarding the infrastructure that would be put in place and the number of trees. And so you can see the utility lines on this conceptual plan layout. And one thing to note is that our ordinance has changed about 1.5 years ago to require the green space preservation and protection plan for any development 5 acres and larger. So this property would be required at the R2 zoning to set aside 30% open space. And they would also have to maintain at least 160 inches per acre of trees. And so those are some things that you would want to keep in mind and that we would review should the rezoning be approved. We would look at those things as it came through the sketch plan process. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to deny. Yes, sir, Ms. Chapman. Okay.
Mayor, members of council, I'm probably the person who has held this project up for a while. I asked the owners to see what they could do to help the people who live there, many of which really didn't have the ability to move. The property owners have done a lot to try to help those individuals who live there. The property has some very beautiful trees, some very nice open space areas. The R2 allows that to happen. I would like to suggest that we try to get the property owners and the representatives from Cage to sit down together and come up with a plan that we can all support. My biggest fear on this is that when we come to the second reading for annexation, that we're going to get a project on this site that we have no approval on, and because we approved annexation at one time and then probably get it turned down, that it'll be developed in the county. I would really like to see the developers sit down with Cage to see what we can do to come up with a compromise. I don't know how that happens, but the plan that you're looking at is a much improved plan from what originally came to us. And I think with some additional work with Cage, that potentially we can get a better plan and one that everybody can be satisfied with. We're not adding any units with this plan, any more units than we would have had if it was R1 or if it was in the overlay district. So I'd just like to offer that as a potential for council.
Okay, Mr. O'Rourke.
I think the issue is bigger than the plat that's right in front of us. Previously, before I was on council, Gary was probably here, there was an agreement made by the people that live there with the town, and the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District was formed. And in that were specific things. And I even think it's bigger than 6 Mile. I think Phillips Community's looking. I think Snowden's looking. There was one woman here today from Snowden that spoke. I think every settlement community in this area who we all want to be a part of the town are watching us. Because if we change the original Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District, what that's telling everyone else is we're really probably not going to hold up our end of the bargain. And I think it's important for us, because the reason settlement communities aren't in this town right now, it's trust. It's trust. You can list all kind of things, but it's do they trust us? And I wish we could find a way to show tonight that we will hold true to previous agreements that we hold in place, especially with settlement communities. So that's the reason I seconded this. And I think, Mr. Chapman, that if this thing gets turned down tonight, I think there will be a meeting with the developer and the people in the neighborhood.
Agreed. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Lanning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add to that it is sometimes these tough decisions that kind of force people to come back to the table, and it's too bad it doesn't happen ahead of time when it should, or perhaps it just didn't work out the first time. But what I can tell you is this, because of experience that I've had, experience that Mr. Chapman has had working really, really hard on the Phillips community situation with 41, there are probably things that nobody has even thought of yet, that if they just get back together, can come out of this and make it something that can really be wonderful for all involved. And that's I think, if we turn this down tonight, I think that's what can happen. So I agree. We need to encourage those folks to all get together. Thank
Mr. Rambo.
This is a tough one, and here's where my head's at. I feel like if this was a totally empty piece of property, undeveloped land, then it should 100% stay community conservation in the overlay district. But it's not. It has how many manufactured homes
31.
or trailers? 30. So it has 31 of those currently. I just don't see in what world somebody is not allowed to improve their property. They can't take an old existing mobile home and build a real home. They're not increasing density. I voted earlier tonight. I'm not increasing density. I don't want to increase density. But you're allowed to improve your property. Not only that, there are serious environmental issues that we talk about at Mount Pleasant Waterworks all the time. Many of them revolve around septic tanks. The biggest hindrance to getting rid of septic tanks is they're extremely expensive. It's extremely expensive to run all of those sewer lines. So here you have a developer not a developer. They've lived here for a long time, or not lived here, but they've owned this property for a long time. Anyway, so you have that they are going to make that investment to simply replace older trailers with newer homes, to run sewer lines that help clean up the environment, preserve the green space, preserve the pond in the back. I guess I just don't see where the issue is. I don't. That's where I'm failing to see what the problem is.
Ms. Hyatt, did you, and then Mr. Santos.
Okay. I was going to ask, which maybe we need to know the answer to. If this stays with the 12,500 square foot lots, they're no longer required to have any preserved green space?
20%.
That goes to 20%? Or
So if the lots are over 10,000 square feet and they are developed in the town, then they have to set aside 20%.
Oh, it's 20, okay.
Correct.
The reason we were torn with this is because at R2, they're showing us all this green space and trees that they're going to preserve, but we have concerns that if the lot sizes have to be bigger, they'll just cut into those green spaces, take out more trees, and just build bigger houses. There might be fewer of them, but your lots are going to be in different places. And when you look at this, those trees are dead center where these lots are, and chances are they'll take more of them out. So if you're wondering why we would lean towards considering this, we're kind of torn about it. But it's like you pick the lesser of two evils. You consider how much they're going to try to preserve and improve. So that's kind of where we were going. We don't know which way really preserves it in a better way.
All right, Mr. Santos, and then Ms. Whitley.
Well, thank you, Mayor. My fellow councilman, Mr. O'Rourke, took words basically right out of my mouth, what I was going to say. I was here when we started the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District. And unfortunately, throughout the years, council has whittled it down. You can just look at the hotel there on Hungry Neck Boulevard, and there's a big subdivision right there that the gentleman complained he couldn't make enough money the way it was, so they came out of the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District. You know, we passed that for a reason. Mr. Green, I remember he was, I think he worked for one of the Parks and Service at the Pinckney House. He was spoke many times, very, very staunch supporter of this, and we agreed. We agreed to do this, and that's what's got me right here. It's not the development that per se. After listening to what the developers and all want to do, they're not adding any more homes or structures on there. But we've got to keep our word. We said we were going to honor the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District. And as Tom said, it's a matter of trust, and we need to do what we say we're going to do. Previous councils didn't do that, and you can tell by looking at Hungry Neck Boulevard some of the structures on there. So I'm in favor of keeping the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District intact.
Ms. Whitley, and then Ms.
So I was notified earlier today that the that Ms. Watts and a representative from Cage did have a meeting, and they were able to speak to one another, and it was a positive meeting, but ended with sort of an agree to disagree of what Cage was asking for, which was an honoring of the 12,500 square foot lot size versus this 8,000 square foot. So, you know, I think we have to honor our comp plan. I think that we have to go with what we're hearing from the surrounding communities, and I think that, you know, there's still a positive plan that could be made with 12,500 square foot lots. And I think that is more in keeping with the character of the community.
Ms. Corley.
I'm just torn. All I keep thinking is just even trade when it comes to the number of structures and get sewer to that area. And then there's the comp plan piece. So and then I also liked what Kathy said about maybe this will force and even, because this is, they started with R4, right? The first time they were asking for R4. So something good comes every time we, we turn them back. They come back with something better. I hate to do that to those people, honestly. I know they came and spoke, the owners, and it was heart-wrenching and heartbreaking that they, I know they didn't want to sell either, they had to, so, okay, that's it, sorry.
Was there any?
The trees, right? So that was the other aspect. If we go back to the bigger lot size, some of those trees may have to be sacrificed.
All right. Yes, sir. One more time.
Yeah, I just have a question. Can we go over real quick again? If it was zoned community conservation, I mean, is it this, it's the same amount of units they could build, they're just bigger lots, essentially. Is that correct?
That's correct.
3
Obviously,
units per acre.
12,500 square feet versus 8,000 square feet would certainly limit the number, but the overall allowable density would still be 3 units per acre.
But I think they wouldn't be able to actually fit 31 units on there with a 12,500 square foot lot size, which is why they want the smaller lot size so that they can maximize the density. So if they were only allowed 12,500 square foot lots and were required to have 20% green space, I think that they would probably only be able to fit in like the mid-20s of units there. So it would actually be less dense.
But there's, okay, the density's already there. I guess that's what I mean, if you have a lot and you have 2 homes on it, and you want to improve one of the homes, and council says, oh, no, now you can only have 1. You got to take one of your homes out. It just doesn't seem right. I don't know.
I think everybody's spoken. We had a similar situation a couple of years ago on Rifle Range Road, like right next to Page Tree Lane, that wanted to annex and wanted a zoning that was higher. I can't remember which number, but it was the same thing about they could save green space and have more trees. And we said no. Gary, you remember, I don't know how many times. I think y'all were on council too, Ms. Lanning. And when it finally came back, they annexed in, and it was at a zoning that was consistent with the neighborhood, and the neighbors supported it. So there is a way to get to yes without, without doing something that's not in character. And I looked y'all in the eye 4 years ago at Olive Branch AME Church, and I told you I wouldn't pick and choose in the Sweetgrass District who I liked and who I didn't. I would stick to it, and that's what I intend to do tonight. So I think we're ready to vote. This is a motion to deny, so a yes vote is to deny. The clerk.
Ms. Hyatt.
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Ms. Landing.
Yes.
Ms. Landing votes yes. Mr. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. O'Rourke votes yes. Mr. Rambo.
No.
Mr. Rambo votes no. Mr. Santos.
Yes.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley.
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Chapman.
Yes.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Ms. Corley.
No.
Ms. Corley votes no. Mayor Haney.
Yes.
Mayor Haney votes yes.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes,
Mr. Mayor?
and 2 noes. Yes?
In the spirit of some of the things that have been said, where they would like the Watts and Cage and I guess some other folks to sit down at the table and think about this, and talk about what to do next, is now an appropriate time. I feel like they shouldn't have to wait a year to bring it back. So if they, yeah.
Save you a little time.
Yes, sir. I understand that. Our ordinance specifically requires a written request to do that. And so in meeting with,
What's the timeline for that to be made?
they could make it any time, sir. And it could be addressed by council anytime in the future, including up to and including, if they were to reapply for something immediately.
Okay, so if they're able to sit down and get something figured out, they don't necessarily have to wait the full year?
Yes, sir. Council can waive that year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. In response, we don't do it proactively. It's a responsive thing from us. Right.
Yes, sir. There needs to be a written request from
Got
the
it.
applicant.
Thank you. All right. Item B, old business. Final reading. This is the development.
Motion to
Plan
approve.
Development District North Point. Motion to
Second.
approve. A second. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
If I may,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor? This was moved from consent agenda to old business because I wanted to make a minor amendment before final reading. If you'll recall, we went through a pretty extensive exercise trying to determine how best to fix this PD that didn't have a map, it didn't have text. And we took it through the process and we're here, and we recently discovered a slight mapping error where we missed a couple of duplexes. And so that just sort of reiterates the reasoning why it does need to be PD, because it's truly a mixed-use neighborhood. And so we would like to amend the map and the text to include the yellow, which is R3, which is the only zoning district that permits duplexes. So essentially what you have is this planned development full of public institutional, single-family detached, townhouses, office professional, and duplexes. And so we've added that section in the text on the next slide. And with that, everything looks good with this. We just want to make sure we got that right. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right.
I move to amend the ordinance as stated by Ms. Reed.
Second.
Okay, so that's a motion to amend?
Yes, sir.
All right, and a second. We will be voting on the amendment. All in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now we're voting on the final reading of the ordinance. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Final reading, ordinance number 21002.
Thank you very much. Committee action items, we're in section number 9. First is Finance Committee. I guess that's Mr. O'Rourke. Approval to accept the results of the fiscal year audit.
Yes, and that's in a form of a motion. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
How'd I do?
That was great.
Okay, good.
Matter of fact, I might do what you did earlier. I might excuse myself. All right. Item B, Recreation Committee discussion and possible action to rename Recreation Way to Ben Marino Way. This is out in Carolina Park near Oceanside.
Right, exactly. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to follow Mr. O'Rourke's lead there, and the Recreation Committee unanimously voted to approve making this name change, so I make the motion that we approve the name change.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. All right, council new business. This is section 10, item A, first reading of an ordinance to amend the budget. Oh, there you go, Mrs. Cutoff. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So what you have before you is a request to amend the current fiscal year 2021 budget by $5,700,000. What you see is 3 actions are included in this. The first is a transfer of $1.6 million per our fund balance policy to stormwater infrastructure and transportation infrastructure. Also to appropriate $1.2 million in FEMA reimbursements for police and fire overtime. And the last is to go ahead and appropriate $1 million to make our debt payment on the $10 million this June.
Okay. Do we have a motion to amend the budget?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the budget as per the discussion, the points given by Mrs. Kotoff. Any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
Mayor, I've talked to Mr. O'Rourke about something that I mentioned at the retreat, and mentioned when we were doing the budget with the stormwater improvements to the tune of $10 million. And that is that we need to include a drainage component to cover the rest of the town. We're spending $10 million in the old village. I suggested that could be done by having a drainage crew and appropriate equipment in a truck. And it came out to be somewhere in the neighborhood, I think $207,000, is that right, Ms. Kotoff? And I would like to add that as an amended, another amendment to this that maybe could be discussed at on second reading. I think Mr. O'Rourke has comment.
Rather than make an amendment, and David, you can stop me if I'm way off base, we can approve tonight's first reading, and then we can bring to the committee this discussion. I think the full council will feel better if it's discussed, numbers are accurate, and an explanation, so that we then, during second reading, can have the vote to add this or not. But I don't think we need to amend this right now. Is that accurate?
Cannot amend
it's
it
a
right
first
now,
reading.
sir. So that is, your proposal
Okay.
is correct.
So I think we could still have your discussion and have that, but we can approve this for tonight for first reading.
All right. All right, all in favor of the motion of the ordinance to amend the budget for the town for the July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021 budget, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Can I make one comment too for Eric?
After Eric reads the numbers.
Oh, I'm
First reading,
sorry.
Ordinance number 21014.
Yes, sir.
Eric, for our committee meeting, it may take some public service, it may take some other things, but if as much information we can have on what that will look like, so that we can actually make a decision and get this pretty quick, would be good. Thanks.
All right, item number 2 is first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 41 in the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances entitled Civil Emergencies.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second, and our committee has discussed this twice, and what we are recommending is that we take out, I don't have the reference in front of me, but it's the item A that has to do with restricting of firearms in public places, and B, restricting sale of alcohol. So guns and alcohol is what we're talking about here tonight. All right, so
Saying the mayor can't.
Yes, sir. It's Code Section 41.03, and the motion is to remove sections A and B from that provision.
sections A and B.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Chapman.
And maybe I missed it. Does this include assisted living facilities as an exception still?
I believe that's the next item, sir.
That's the
Thank
next item, yes.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it.
I know, it's getting to be a long evening. Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Lanning.
Well, thank you to the PJ&L Committee and Chairman, our mayor, for taking this subject up. I did ask to have it put on the agenda back in December, and at that time, the decision was made to postpone any changes while we were still in the state of emergency as declared by our governor in regard to COVID-19. And then I asked to have it brought up in our council last month, because you can do that when it's already been through committee, even if it isn't forwarded to the council. And what I pointed out that night was purposely vague, in the sense that I was talking about the fact that the mayor does have the ability to do unilateral proclamations. And we all know that we have had multiple situations come up over this last 10 months that involved things like originally lockdowns, but then thankfully, very quickly, we opened up, and mask ordinances at that point. I'm rehashing this simply to say that the other day, and then I asked to have it put back to PJL that day, and now what we have is something that will take the things that I pointed out in the meeting the other day, which is that these are things that are they're guaranteed to us in the Bill of Rights. And it doesn't really make sense. I don't know why these were originally put in here, but we have the ability to change it. But the real reason, and this is definitely part of it, this was perhaps one of the more egregious looking things, but the real reason was the way our ordinance right now reads is that we can leave it up to our mayor to make proclamations as long as we're in an emergency indefinitely. And we don't know when COVID will be over. It may never be over. I did a little research and double-checked my knowledge and memory, and there's no virus on Earth that has been eradicated except one that only exists in labs, and that is smallpox. So a lot of the things that have gone to the wayside, like polio, are still very much alive in parts of the world and unfortunately still cause problems. So COVID could be with us for a long time. We hope that with the vaccine we'll get through and learn to deal with it better and survive it. all the time in the future, as opposed to the horrors of this last year. But I will say this, right now, the only way that we can, at the end of April, ask our mayor to allow, we can't ask, he can do whatever he wants to do and whatever he feels is right at that time. The only way that the council can say, well, businesses are already doing this themselves, they're already imposing at their front doors what they feel is right for their customers. Everything that we cover in our ordinance is already covered by what's being done by our townspeople. And the only way we can stop that is to say the next day, hey, we want to revoke this. And if we don't have 5 votes to revoke, there's no point in even calling the meeting. So what gets left out in that process is public input. And it's been told to me, well, some of the public input has been pretty painful to watch. But the fact remains that this is an evolving situation. This ordinance was probably never written to deal with a pandemic that would last 10 months and beyond. It was probably written to deal with things like hurricanes that come and go quickly. So we're in a very unusual situation here, and I'm not sure that just taking away the ability to not bear arms, which again, Second Amendment rights, just taking away the ability to not have the mayor do his own prohibition, which I don't think the mayor intended to do either one of those, quite frankly, I don't think that's enough. I think we have to figure out a way that we as council, because otherwise some, if not many, of our citizens are going to hold us responsible for the fact that we have gone from being a strong council to a council that has our mayor making proclamations and without it unchecked. Thank you.
Well, as the chair of the committee and the holder of this position, at least currently, I just want to add, the attorney told us in our meeting that council has absolute veto power over any proclamation. Council can call a meeting, an emergency meeting, 3 council members can do so, and override, amend, or it's at the end of Chapter 41. So all of those things are there. And second of all, I don't want to confuse the issues. It does not create a strong mayor because these proclamations are enabled by the council form of government. And a strong mayor hires and fires staff and does budgets and directs staff. Can't do any of that under this. The other thing I want to mention is that one of the things that was left out of the previous statement was we also had riots this summer. And our police chief and these fine officers in this room kept rioters from coming over that bridge. And although I will vote for this tonight, if you look, that does not prevent citizens from keeping and bearing arms. That prevents people from carrying them in the public streets. That is to protect our citizens from people coming over that bridge with guns shooting at our citizens. So there will be unintended consequences of this. But please don't confuse, it does not create a strong mayor position. All of these are granted by council and can be revoked by council. So, we're not changing the form of government, but we may one day come back and look at that Section A and realize that was there for the protection of our citizens, not to violate their rights. There's always unintended consequences. All right, so we have a motion. Yes.
I believe the gun rules are dictated by state law. I know they're even debating open carry and all of that. And so I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I literally can't imagine a scenario in which the town of Mount Pleasant mayor would even legally be allowed to do that. I don't know. Anyway,
we can ask the attorney and law enforcement, but curfews are in there as well.
Yeah, and we're not getting rid of those.
Curfews are in there, and we got called by the county when there was unrest downtown saying, we need y'all to pass a curfew now. The chief of police backed that and said we needed it. I signed a proclamation that was from, 9 p.m., I think, until the following morning. There was certainly no controversy over that, but it gave our police the ability to get people off the streets who were intending to hurt our citizens or their property. So, frankly, I feel like a lot of this has been exaggerated and overplayed, but we have just lived through the reasons that this exists and that the council, in its wisdom, whenever it was done, decided to do that. If there was a riot coming over that bridge, like there was the night we needed the curfew, We don't have time to get a quorum of council, publish an agenda, get the required attorney, town administrator, chief of police, clerk, in a stated meeting place and meet and say, hey, do y'all want to do a curfew? That's why those things are there. Yes, ma'am.
I don't think that it's necessary to say that, because it's obvious I was the one speaking, that I'm exaggerating. I specifically, it says in A, prohibit or regulate the possession of one's own premise, off one's own premises of explosives, firearms, ammunition, or dangerous weapons of any kind, and prohibit the purchase, sale, transfer, or other disposition thereof. That does not have anything to do with whether we should or shouldn't be stopping rioters trying to come over the bridge. And because that's been brought up, I want to commend again what an incredible job the Mount Pleasant Police did in protecting us that night, and every night for that matter. So we are now conflating things that are unrelated. And also the second part, which is related to prohibition, prohibit or regulate the buying or selling of beer, wine, or intoxicating beverages of any kind, and their possession or consumption off one's own premises. So again, these are two things that are in there. It's hard to understand why they were in there. And these are part of what I was trying to bring to the table, but actually the real issue is you can say, yes, we can revoke something the next day with 3 people called, but if we know the vote is 5-4 up until that point, it's hard to get folks to want to get together. And the number one thing you don't end up having with a proclamation is you don't have any public input. And that might be harmful or painful to some at times, but the reality is it's our public. That's who we answer to. And 3 months from now, which is when the next proclamation would come up if there was one, there would be changes in what has happened. We would be further along in the vaccines. Maybe the mayor won't make a proclamation that time. But anyway, these are in here, and that's great. I just think we still haven't addressed the number one issue, which is that I don't think this was ever intended to last for 10 months or more.
All right, this is first reading. It cannot be amended. The motion is to approve first reading. We'll do this by voice vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
2 noes? 2 noes. Okay, so 7-2, the motion passes.
First reading, ordinance number 21015.
All right, first reading, an ordinance to provide for a moratorium on certain multifamily structures. This is quite complex. Should we immediately go into executive session for this? Is it that type of legal information? The committee, I believe, had some discussion.
Yes, Mayor, to summarize for the entire council, so everybody knows where we are in this was addressed at committee. There was an executive session to discuss it. What you have in front of you is as discussed at committee, an ordinance that would temporarily place a moratorium on multifamily structures. Council may recall that we have had somewhat similar moratorium for over time over the last few years. I do want to clarify for the record and for council that this is different basis. And the basis for this proposed moratorium is that it would allow the town time in order to alter and amend its zoning ordinances to meet the goals of the comprehensive plan. And that is the stated purpose. It did come out of committee for up to 2 years. It's not an automatic 2 years, up to 2 years. In addition, there are 4 exemptions. As Mr. Chapman mentioned earlier, that is probably a point of discussion by this council. And those exemptions are senior housing, any property or lawful agreements, vested rights. The third would be affordable housing units, and the fourth would be a rebuild of any existing multifamily units. That is how the ordinance is written. As council is aware, this is first reading, and amendments are not appropriate tonight. Certainly you can discuss proposals, and if there are any changes, provide staff with guidance so that we can have those ready for you next month. It is certainly up to council as to whether executive session is warranted or necessary. You have received a confidential memo as well.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
In a second. That is for the ordinance. I don't hear any request to go into executive session. Again, this is first reading. If we need legal advice, we can get it or read the confidential memo. I don't see a real need to do that. Motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion? This is on the apartment moratorium, multifamily moratorium, excuse me. Yes.
I guess I have a question that I'm not sure if this would be for executive session, but one of the things that the basis for this moratorium is our, our zoning, our overhaul of the zoning code. But we also recently adopted a comprehensive plan. And so within the comprehensive plan, there are zones within that permit multifamily housing. So our zoning code would be aligning with the comprehensive plan. So my question is there a way to, how does that impact or how should that create a cause potentially for amending the moratorium to sort of be in line with that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. And that was a matter that was discussed with committee, was the overriding issue of, or overall issue of, are there elements of our comprehensive plan that allow certain multifamily development in certain areas? And of course, I'll start at the very top, and the comprehensive plan, of course, speaks in general terms, broad strokes. But yes, ma'am, as you have mentioned, there could be instances where our comprehensive calls for that. And one of the ways that could be accomplished is to create an exemption specific for that purpose. Of course, anything else beyond that, I would feel more comfortable discussing in executive session, but that would be the mechanism to do it.
I guess that's something that I think that we should consider as a potential amendment to this moratorium for next month, something that I would like to consider. I understand that I'm just one person on council, but that's something that that I would like to consider.
Okay. So the motion is to approve. Yes, ma'am.
Last time we voted on this, I voted against it, and I'm going to repeat what I said that night, which is that, and it's actually put here by the staff, we have a permit allocation system, and it greatly limits how many multifamily permits can be issued. And because of that limitation, we're already in a situation where apartment buildings are not going to be able to just spring up all over quickly. The other thing is, if you're going to do something as essentially a little bit drastic as pass a moratorium on something, you should have the data in front of you right there. Where are we on apartments? I'm not saying I want a bunch of more new apartments. We already have some more coming up right now down the road. But what we should have in front of us before we would vote on this is we should have things like what is the ratio right now in our town? From what I understand, the average ratio is around 27%, and I think we were right at that. We were not exceeding that the last time we did this, so I wonder where we are now. I haven't had time to look.
Let me get, we got some side conversations going. Go ahead. Didn't want to be rude to you.
And then, thank you. And then the other thing is, we have very expensive pricing in Mount Pleasant, as everyone knows. One of the number one things we talk about in terms of traffic, in terms of economic development and bringing jobs to this side of the bridge, and in terms of our hospitality and healthcare, which are our two biggest industries by far, is that people need to be able to live near where they work. And that solves problems. So do we even know, is there a single person on council right now who knows what the average apartment rate is in Mount Pleasant? Shouldn't we know that before we make a decision on saying no more apartment buildings? So I think we're already covered very well with the permit allocation system, and that's why I will be voting no on this tonight.
All right. Any other comments?
You want to ask about the senior housing? No.
I think the second read.
The senior housing and affordable housing are exempt.
Right, but amendments would be made at the second reading,
At
right?
second reading, we
That's
cannot
correct.
amend on first reading.
Right.
Won't be amending it today.
Okay? Yes, ma'am. You have the floor.
Between us. But the senior housing can look really aggressive. I don't know if you guys have been down Faison lately, but
Yeah.
that looks extremely high, extremely aggressive. They have completely, and I know that was way before us, but
Cut
it
down
just
all
made
the-
me rethink senior housing, you know?
If I could
These are things we
respond,
can
Ms.
take up on second reading.
Ms.
Yes.
Corley.
Thank you, Tom.
In our meeting, we asked for, we requested how many we have. There are currently 10 that are all completed
Thank you, Tom.
citywide. There are 3 more that are either under construction partially or almost finished. So that's why I asked the question, and I apologize for
Okay.
being in a different area.
That's all right.
But that's why I asked that question, and, you know, if y'all want to go into executive session, I can read them all to you, but be that as it may, that's why I'm going to be voting to get this started, and then on second reading, see what we can do with senior housing, all of which, by the way, I could participate in, but I choose not to.
Okay. All right, the motion is to approve this ordinance number 21016. All right, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion is approved 8-1.
First reading of ordinance number 21016.
All right, so there is no item 5, executive session. There is no item B, old business. Before we get to this next one, our legal counsel and I were just looking at the Freedom of Information Act this week, and we've been doing it right by the spirit of the law, but the letter of the law says that we vote first and then the chair reads the thing. I've been reading it before the vote on why we would go in, so just to do it by the letter of the law, we have been doing it, so everybody knows why we're going to executive session. We just decided, or I decided I want to do it by the exact letter of the law, so there's no question. So is there a motion to go into executive session for the reasons listed in item C?
So moved.
Second.
And we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, any opposed? We will be going into executive session for the consideration of applications to serve on the Historic District Preservation Commission, and after executive session, council may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda, or discuss in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. We are in executive session.
I don't really care about like the functionality of the old one, it's just really thick.
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna be out of here by 9 o'clock. All right. Yeah, we have several members.
You can't sit back down in that seat again.
All right. Everybody's here. You can vote from where you are. We are reconvened from executive session. No action was taken, no votes were cast. However, we do have motions resulting from the information shared. First motion, please.
Mayor, Council, I move that we reappoint Corey Barber, number 1.
We have a motion and a second for Mr. Corey Barber. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Next,
I move that we appoint Ann Shaw to seat number 2.
we have a motion to appoint Ann Shaw to seat number 2 on the Historic Commission, and a second. Any
Second.
discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. There being nothing else on our agenda to come before this board, we stand adjourned. Board?
Oh, I thought you said court.
No, I wish it was a court.
Here's my thought on that, and this is really embarrassing.